And we back. And Mike, I was gonna say, I've been starting these videos off with puns and play-ons. I just don't want to do that this video. It just seems a little cheesy. Got 'em. We back. Team recap. We going over the Green Bay Packers. How you doing?
Besides wanting to just ram my head into this wall right here, because honestly, I mean, you kind of got me there, Mike. I'm not gonna lie. I thought we finally escaped the puns, but man. So speaking of escape, you want to escape right to this offense?
I think there's like a draft class. That's what we usually do right before the offense. We could do that first.
I mean, yeah, most teams do a draft before they get into like the season and stuff, but I'm not really sure that the Packers did this year. So, like, I mean, we could talk about it if you want to.
Yeah, let's start off. It was a bad draft. I don't think there's any denying it. And I guess I could. It's hard for me to understand. It really is. Two of your best player, and I'd say second to third best maybe player on the team, Aaron Jones, who's been consistent and last year had a monster season. Your first two picks just replaced your best player and your second maybe or third best player. It don't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. They both have both. Aaron Jones is still in his prime. Aaron Rodgers ain't that old. I know people are making the comparison. It's the same year that I think age that when he replaced Brett Favre that they drafted Aaron Rodgers to replace Brett Favre. But do I think Jordan Love was the player to do so? No. I see like they have some similarities. Jordan Love has ability to make plays out of the pocket when the play breaks down. So I guess I see it from that aspect. But people have been asking for years. Let's get Devontae Adams a compliment. Let's get Aaron Rodgers that other weapon to kind of throw this offense into overdrive and really see what they could do at full potential. And this was the class to do so. They're saying historical. They could be an historical wide receiver draft class. You could see plenty of all pros or Pro Bowl players here at the wide receiver position, and you had still some on the board. You had T. Higgins, you had Michael Pittman, you had Denzel Mims. Like, it's not like there weren't players available, and you draft Aaron Rodgers' replacement.
This draft class, Mike, is the most egregious thing I've ever seen an NFL GM do in my life, I think. Just imagine people keep wanting to say, as you said, oh, this is Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre, except now it's Jordan Love to Aaron Rodgers. That is the most garbage thing I've ever heard in my entire life because Aaron Rodgers slipped in the draft. Jordan Love didn't slip in the draft. This isn't Tua falling into the mid-20s. This is a guy that, to me, you vastly overdrafted. Personally, I had a third-round grade on this guy. I just don't see the appeal as of right now unless you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a 4-year developmental project, which honestly, I mean, it probably should be. And then you want to talk about, oh, A.J. Dillon. Like, it doesn't even make sense. This guy's a 250-pound running back who ran a 4.5. So he's kind of a freak athlete, sure, but you already have maybe the best running back combo in the league in Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So it's like, okay, if you think that you need a running back for the future, why not just put it off to next year where we already have ETN and Chuba Hubbard, who probably aren't going to be top 15, top 20, top 25 picks. Like, I'm sure you could get one of those guys at your typical late first round, early second round pick, and it wouldn't be a big deal. To me, this is just so egregious because just imagine being a game away from the Super Bowl, your roster, like this close. And what do? Instead of closing that gap with the rest of the teams in the NFC, you just let the gap widen and you keep falling back because all you need to do just try and picture this offense with instead of taking Jordan Love, take like a Michael Pittman at 26. And that's really all you need. Because like last year, like who are the number twos that we saw trot out there? We saw Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Geronimo Allison. Am I missing any?
I do not believe so, no.
Maybe Equanimous St. Brown for a game. But like,
Yeah.
come on, what are we even talking about here? Mike? I don't think that you need some crazy high potential. I know people are like, oh, maybe they should trade for Julio Jones. No. You don't need that. Just get a guy like a Michael Pittman or T. Higgins at that 26th spot and see what a top 3 quarterback in the NFL can do. It's just a shame because one of my friends is a huge Packers fan, and on draft night he texted me like how disgusted he was and how we wasted Aaron Rodgers' career. And honestly, they kind of are. They kind of are. They're wasting that last chapter, and to me that's offensive not only to Aaron but that's offensive to Packers fans because it's like you're rebuilding instead of retooling. When in reality, all you need to do are shuffle some pieces and add a couple of guys to put you over that hump. You don't need to draft a quarterback who shouldn't touch the field for a couple of years, or a running back who, honestly, he shouldn't have a carry this year, Mike. Do you realize how dumb that sounds? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Josiah DeGuara, like, I think he's an okay player. Before the combine, like, I thought that he would have been solid value in like the 5th round. He's a pretty solid blocker. I think you vastly overdrafted him in the 3rd. He could turn out good, obviously, because he is kind of a balanced guy. But again, is he going to crack the depth chart this year? Who here is playing in 2020, Mike? Who?
I don't think anyone. I think that's the problem. This is the most they don't have any player that actually has an impact. Not even just like an immediate impact or any impact. They probably won't have any impact. They might not even touch the field. There might be a total of 15 to 20 snaps this whole team, and that's sad. It's a sad fact.
No, what's sad is like it's like okay, you take Jordan Love. All right, now we're gonna get Jordan Love a running back for when he plays in 5 years. Get him a tight end and get him 3 offensive linemen to help protect him. How about we get Aaron Rodgers some guys to protect him? How about we get him some guys to throw to? I just don't understand the thought process behind. It's just so ridiculous to me. When why are you drafting for the future when to me your future is now? And in other draft classes that have been kind of shoddy, we looked at the Eagles, for instance, and it's like, okay, they have the saving grace of, oh, you traded a 3 and a 5 for Slay. Or we've looked at the Broncos where it's like, oh, okay, you traded for AJ Boye and Jarrell Casey. Like, there's some veterans here that you did improve this team with. How many veterans did Green Bay trade for, Mike? None. None. This would look so much better if they would have traded one or two of those 6s and 7s and got a capable number 2 receiver, or maybe got a linebacker to replace Blake Martinez. We'll get into that later. But like, I just don't understand what we're doing. You're basically letting teams close the gap when last year you showed that you were the 2nd best team in the NFC. It just doesn't make sense. And I think as we've kind of talked about in previous recaps, teams have closed the gap, and I think teams have now surpassed Green Bay.
Yeah, I'd agree there. And I wouldn't say drafts like these are uncommon. It's just usually uncommon for teams like this that were in the playoff chase. They were right there. And to have a class like this looks like, with the way they drafted, you think this team was picking top 5, and they weren't. They're picking at 26.
No, this draft, it's not uncommon at all. This is super common for the Miami Dolphins, Cincinnati Bengals, New York Giants, and Detroit Lions. This is great. This is what they do year in and year out, basically, where you're always drafting to the future because you can sell people on the future. If you're going to be bad now, it's tough to get people in the stadium now and kind of change that. But you're Green Bay, you already you don't need to sell people on the future because, like I said, when you have an aging Aaron Rodgers, you need to be making the most out of that last championship window. You need to be writing that final chapter instead of just shipping the book off to be published. And it just doesn't even make sense. It really just doesn't make sense. And that's just for Aaron Rodgers, let alone Aaron Jones, who, why not even trade him away right now? Like, I just don't even understand. Like, what are you doing? What is the purpose behind it? I know some people have said, like, oh, now Aaron's going to be super motivated. Both Aarons will be. And that's just such garbage to me. Like, if you don't think these guys who were 4 quarters away from the Super Bowl were already going to come in here motivated, then I think you're a fool. And I imagine they would have been much more motivated if they, when they walked into the locker room for training camp, if they would have looked to their left and right and saw a lot more talented pieces that are going to help their team instead of, oh, hey, here's your replacement. So with that being said, are you ready to get into the offense?
Yeah, let's see it. It's almost amazing we don't see any of the names from that last slide. I don't know how none of them made it. It's amazing. But I guess we'll get right into it. I'll let you get right into it after the way you felt about that draft class. What are your thoughts on this offense?
Oh, I mean, I think it's basically the team we saw in the NFC Championship game, don't you? It'd be nice.
Yeah, it looks a lot similar.
It'd be nice if they would have made some additions here. I mean, obviously, Devin Funchess is, I don't think he's going to set the world on fire. You lost Jimmy Graham. That's kind of a big subtraction, I guess. I just don't get how this team is any better. When you already have guys who are vets to say the least, in Rodgers, Adams, Jones, and on that offensive line, just pushing pushing the same roster into a new year isn't going to do anything. And if anything, it's not even the same roster; it's a worse roster. So I don't really have much to say about this offense. Like, go ahead, Mike. What do you got?
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to bring some optimism, and I know you ain't ready for that because usually I'm the other way around. I'm the one tearing it down, and you're the one trying to build it back up. I do think they had one smart signing here. I think kind for a veteran that was cut by another team that you might have heard of, the Detroit Lions. I think getting Ricky Wagner at right tackle, I think that was a good pickup. I think they did it for cheap, and I think they got a quality veteran in there. I don't think is it moving the needle? No. Does it really make their team that much better? Not really, but it was a solid pick. So I'm just trying to bring some optimism for all those cheeseheads watching and probably actually not watching.
I'd agree if like they didn't lose Brian Bulaga in the process. So I mean, what are we talking about? I realize Bulaga had health issues, but I think Ricky Wagner showed in Detroit that he had some performance issues. You know,
It's fair.
I don't know, man. I want to look at this roster, and I still think it probably is a top five roster in the NFC. But like, what am I supposed to do with this? This isn't a 2019 offseason recap video, Mike. It's a 2020, and that means that there's supposed to be something fundamentally different with this team. If you had an identity, build on your identity. If you didn't have one, find one. I don't even know what this team did.
I'd agree with you there. And I guess their identity did change last year. We've seen a lot more defense, and we can get right into that. So this is actually a pretty good defense. I think if they did have an identity, it's on this side of the ball. So I think it's disappointing because of the talent they have on the other side of the ball, but they have some talent here. I think that linebacking core, obviously, the Smiths, the pass rush and the productivity you got there, I think was fantastic last year, and I think you're going to see that again this year. They have some bodies in the middle. They have Kenny Clark, Travius Adams, Rashawn Gary, Dean Lowry. I think that's nice to see, and it'll help some of those linebackers and the secondary, which is probably the prize of this team. And I think that's their probably foundation. I know you really like this secondary, so if you want to get a little bit into that.
No, I mean, I just think that I'm gonna call us back all the way back to like the Redskins video when you were talking about how their D line, how there were two things. You said they were good and they were young. I can't think of a better way to describe the secondary. I mean, you have three capable corners and two incredibly capable safeties, all that are not even in their prime yet. Like that's to me, if there's no bright spots on the team anywhere else, I think that is definitely one to look for going forward, especially when you already have those elite pass rushers in Za'Darius and Preston. And then you have guys like Kenny Clark. Like you do have playmakers at every level of the defense in the short term, and I'll say in the long term. And that's where I think kind of the bright spot is because I do think the identity should be shifting, as you kind of hinted at, towards the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, as soon as you give Jordan Love the reins, I think that the identity is going to be, it's going to have to be on the limiting teams because I don't know how many points he'll be putting up. So other than that, though, I don't really have much to say about this defense because it really didn't get much better. That's the problem. Obviously, you added Christian Kirksey. That's a guy who used to be 130, 140 tackle guy. The last couple of years, he hasn't done much in Cleveland. You really didn't add much outside of that. So it's like I don't really know what there is to say. This really is the same team that we're trotting out here again from 2019 to 2020. Although I do think that this kind of additional year and playoff experience will help those secondary guys develop for sure. And I do think this might be a better defense come this upcoming season, but I just don't see how, as a team, Green Bay got any better. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they really didn't have any true impact free agents. Again, I said I liked Rick Wagner, but did it make the team really better? No, not really. And then as we went over the draft, you don't see another player on this side of the ball either. So there's not much to say, but who cares what players are playing or who they draft? It's all about winning games, and let's get into the schedule. So I usually start, but we'll switch it over. What are some games that stick out to you, some kind of monumental games for this team this season?
I'm gonna say weeks 1 and 3. I think the Vikings and Saints Those are two teams that made the playoffs last year. And I think for Green Bay, you got to kind of see and judge how much that team morale took a hit this offseason. And I think you're going to see that real early when you have two division games right off the bat, and then you have Drew Brees coming to town. I think that's going to be really really interesting to say the least. I do think that they match up pretty good, like defense to offense wise, and I think that their offense does match up pretty solid against their defenses as well. But I just think that that'll be a really good kind of measuring stick for them in this upcoming season. So I'm gonna flip that on you. What are a couple games that you were interested in?
Yeah, I think a pretty obvious one is Week 9, San Fran. Again, it's the same team, and if we'll get into it later, but did the 49ers improve? It's debatable. But we'll get into that in another video. That matchup, I think it's interesting because again, the Packers' strength is that defense. That secondary's has had another year under its belt, improvement, and let's see how they do against that San Fran rushing attack. I think that's their strength up middle. So see if they can handle it this year. I think that's going to be a fun rematch to watch. And my next one would be Week 13, the Eagles, assuming that at least half the Eagles are still healthy and not on IR. And that's, debatable at best. But I think that can really put into picture and we can really see what the Green Bay Packers are. If they are the same team last year that was in the NFC Championship, or if they maybe the tides have turned, maybe this dominant run in not necessarily a dynasty, but a solid team for years to come, maybe it's kind of behind them. They're past their prime. And I think the Eagles, if anything, got a lot better and are just hitting stride. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch and really see where this team's going.
I agree. I think that 49ers game was a really good shout. I actually couldn't really see it because our face cams were in the way on my screen. But when you think of what Raheem Mostert did to that team last year in the NFC Championship, it was just flat out embarrassing. 220 yards and 4 touchdowns is almost as despicable as their draft class. So I don't. We want to talk about measuring sticks. I think that that'll be a good chance to see, like, oh, how are we against the team that beat us in the NFC Championship? We were a game away against this team. Let's see how we are this time. So for us, though, to see how we are, Mike, you know what the people need to do? They need to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, if you guys are big Houston Texans fans and you want us to do a team recap on them pronto, Mike, all they have to do is comment the Houston Texans, and who are we doing next?
The Houston Texans.
As unfortunate as it might be, yes, we are. So with that being said, toss your favorite team in the comments, even though I don't think many people are going to comment Houston Texans and Bill O'Brien. Just comment something. We don't bite. We say it all the time. Just hit us up. Mike, do you have anything else to add to the people? Or
No, I think we mic'd up and now we mic it out.